Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome meeting number 509 by George Park Commission. Michelle, do we have a quorum?
Yes,
we do. Thank you. We all received a copy of the minutes of the previous meeting. Any additions, corrections? Vote to accept.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the minutes of the previous meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Same thing with fiscal actions report.
I'll move.
Vote to accept.
Second.
Been moved to accept and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Dave, do you want to introduce our guest speaker today?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Scott Canning is here today. Scott reached out to me by email first, and then we spoke on the phone. Interesting topic I thought might be of interest to the commission and anyone present. Just talking about electrifying the voting world as the auto world has become more electrified. I guess it stands to pass that the voting world is going in that same direction. We had a good conversation talking about how these might work at different ways. He's knowledgeable about this issue kind of, I think, around the world. And it'd be interesting to see. I know they're setting up some test pilots here and there, and we thought it'd be a good 20 minutes of your time to see what the future might hold. So with that, Justin is getting us set up, and Scott, thanks for coming.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I know British guys have a slightly difficult reputation here. So before this fires up, I'll just talk a little bit about the company I work for. There are three sides to the company. We build electric boats, which are like fast, powerful. They're like 600 horsepower, 35 knots, beautiful yachts. So dayboats. They're not like a little Duffy like Land Cruiser that you cruise around. Sorry, a harbour cruiser that does 6 knots. So it's a new generation of boat that is coming, and there are. We'll see on one of these diagrams, there are lots of manufacturers coming into that world. I know for a fact that Mercury have announced that they're bringing a 150 horsepower electric outboard into the market. And all the other manufacturers will follow. So my job first started of working for our sister company, Vita Yachts, which make these beautiful power boats. And then we realized that, with having these, and they're probably about double the battery size of your average electric car. That will change over time as batteries become cheaper and smaller and more efficient. So they need to be fast charged, as you would with a DC charger on an electric car. So, thank you. Yeah, forward back. So that's the Vita, the manufacturers of those. They also manufacture the powertrain, which is a standalone powertrain that is scalable in size. Everything from that will go into a 24-foot boat up to we're talking with the Catalina Express in California that runs from LA to Avalon Harbor on Catalina Island. That's a 5-6 year project to create something that powerful and that big. But the common denominator of all these different vessels is that you need fast charging in order for it to make it viable. Because nobody wants to spend their valuable summer afternoons waiting 5 hours for their boat to charge up when they come in after half a day playing around on the lake or in the water. So Aqua is the name of the company that I'm VP of Operations for in the States, and our goal is to reduce the impact of boating on the marine environment through the development of an all-electric and integrated global ecosystem of marine superchargers. So they are fast chargers, as you would see like a Tesla network have theirs. But the difference being with this is the reason why we've set it up as a separate company is because we want to charge every boat that enters the market. So we're going to be a universal charger for all the different manufacturers as they come in to the market. Whether it be a little tiny outboard that you just tack onto your existing boat, or whether it, as I said before, it scales all the way up to a ferry. So We all, as I'm sure we're aware, climate change and carbon emissions are interlinked. This is kind of an interesting fact of how polluting boats are compared to cars. Obviously, there are a lot more cars in the market than there are boats. A 10-metre ice, which is internal combustion engine day boat, which is a 33-footer, big tank, diesel tank. That's 1290 kilograms, which in American is 1.4 US tons of CO2 is generated in a typical day on a boat. That takes your average car. That doesn't look like an average car, it looks like a Porsche to me. But it takes an average car 3 months to generate that amount of CO2. So there's a lot of environmental impacts to boating, as we're all aware. Obviously that expands to water quality and air quality as well. Petrol and diesel power boats, significant impact on the marine environment as they operate, because the CO2, nitrous oxide, and unburned hydrocarbons. And obviously that's driving climate change. Also, another benefit of electric engines is they're completely silent. So actually, one of the things I always forget to mention, because I'm talking about how fast and fun they are to ride, when you get on the boat, there's no engine noise, and you're doing 35 knots. So it's quite an unusual experience. This is to do with the impact of during COVID, not on lakes and not on a pleasure. I know that our pilot market is in Tahoe, Lake Tahoe, where we're putting the first charges in around Lake Tahoe. And the reason why I'm here in Lake George is because I've been told it's a very similar environment in terms of the environmental sensitivity of the area and then the history of boating here as well. So this fact here is like water quality improved during COVID-19 because a lot of boating didn't happen. I mean, it did in pleasure lakes, obviously. I'm sure you had a very busy year, the same as everyone else did last year, but that's more talking in the marine environment, so it's not particularly relevant for here. So what is the solution? Then we basically create a network, a fully marinized dockside network of fast chargers for electric boats. So each station has AC and DC charging. We're probably moving away from AC in the end, because most of these batteries that are coming into the market will take a DC charge, which is direct current, which is a lot faster way of charging your battery. And obviously, there's a question of like, you've got a lot of electricity next to water. Doesn't sound like a brilliant idea, but there are massive safety protocols in place. So once you plug one of these chargers in, you see the little nozzles on there. That's exactly the same. It's called CCS1 in the States, or a CCS2, which are a standard charger that is used throughout the car industry. So it's tried and tested. Electricity will not flow until you plug that in. There's a secure connection. The boat is talking to the charger, and the charger is talking to the boat before anything can flow. If you pull that thing out and dangle it in the water, no electricity is flowing, so you can't do yourself any damage. It's also got, just like you have in the GFI breaker in your bathroom, these have very sophisticated breakers and systems that if there's any change in the current, it switches it off automatically. There also, it says marinized there, because obviously salty water and electrical components don't mix well, just because, so we have to create specialized equipment to deal with the wet and warm environment, and especially when you're in a marinized world where it's salt too. So they treat the insides, the electrical components of the chargers. They're treated in a sort of epoxy, basically, they're coated. And then also we have a system where the electrical components are never completely exposed to the outside air. It's called IP65, which is, I'm forgetting what it says, ingress. It's basically how much air, where air can get into that charger. So basically they're liquid cooled. And the only thing that's exposed, just like a radiator on your car, is the heat conductor at the bottom or at the back of these things. So they survive in fairly rugged situations. So those circles on the right, just some of the manufacturers that we've been dealing with. And our engineers talk to their engineers to make sure that our chargers can talk to that. One of the most notable ones, which most people have heard of, is Torpedo, who are they were the very first people to generate an actual workable electric outboard engine. But as I said, a lot of other people have come into the market since then. And then, so you've got outboard manufacturers and then boat manufacturers that are either using other people's powertrains. Vita, for example, our sister company, we've white labeled our powertrain out to several other different manufacturers. And then these manufacturers are making their own. And as I said, the big boys are coming in. Mercury and people like that are entering the market, which will really make a difference. Currently, if the boating, the statistics think that by 2030 there will be 1 million electric boats on the market. This is just an illustration of what I was talking earlier about how scalable the electric boats are going to be. They're all using that standard CCS connector. We're working with a company out of Canada called Tiger. They have a jet ski or a personal watercraft that's all electric, has 3 hours of runabout time on it, and will charge in about 15 minutes on one of these chargers. And they're completely zero emissions. This is more proprietary just to our company. So once we set a network up, so what we're trying to do in Lake Tahoe, for example, I'm talking, there are 12 marinas around Lake Tahoe, which is 20 miles wide and 20 miles tall and 20 miles wide, sorry, 8 miles wide. We're talking about 6 of those marinas. We'll hope by the end of next summer we'll have one of our chargers on there. So if you are a boater with an electric engine, whether it be an outboard or an inboard electric motor, you'll have an app like you do the screen on your car, or if either on your boat or in your phone, will tell you these are the locations of where the chargers are. These are the number, there's 5 people in the queue ahead of you, there's 2 people ahead of the queue ahead of you, and you can actually book up. If you go, I know I'm like 5 minutes away from getting into X marina, I can reserve a spot on my app and cruise in there. And then from the marina's perspective, anyone who signs up to this app, you know that boat's, insured. You're not going to get some rickety old piece of equipment coming into your marina and causing a liability. You have their information on board. This is the first phase of rollout at the moment. We have existing chargers in Italy and in the French Riviera. As I said, Lake Tahoe is our target in the States, and then Lake Washington. I'm concentrating on lakes to begin with, even though there will be marine applications. Basically because the powertrains that will come out first and be affordable will be smaller, and they will be in boats that are like 30 feet or less. So they're more like suitable to more contained bodies of water like lakes. And then also we want to be like companies like the big boys like Mercury. They're going to be concentrating on lakes first, just because of the size of the powertrains that they're dealing with. They'll be coming out with a 150 or 180, or they're not going to be coming out with a giant 500 horsepower with 6 of those engines on the boat to begin with. It'll be a while until we can bring the size of the battery packs down to that global rollout. Eventually, emission saving over time, which is going to be significant. And the market in total number of global electric boating market expects to be over 20 billion by 2027. And it's a little bit like computer chips in terms of how fast the technology is advancing. The trouble with, and I'm sure some of you are aware of this, but The trouble with battery, there's three things that are an issue. One is cost, obviously, because it's new tech, and they're trying to create this and build them as fast as they can. Two is range. How much of a charge can these boats actually hold on to, and how much power have you got there? So that's another thing that's, to begin with, it's going to be useful to be in lakes rather than in the open oceans. As that range increases over time, then we can safely move into different environments. And then the other one, which often isn't think about, is heat. Because if you think about it, you've got a battery pack that you're putting a lot of energy into over a very short period of time. And there's resistance just due to Ohm's law. As you're putting that many electrons moving around, you get heat built up. So there are, like for example, our sister company, Vita, has an exclusive arrangement with a battery manufacturer in Los Angeles called Romeo, and they have made significant technological advancements of how they can reduce reduce the charging time and keep the temperature down. And then the other significant thing is weight. And then, because everyone's picked up a battery, knows how heavy a battery is. So all of those things are changing almost exponentially in terms of how efficient they're becoming. One thing, that's just the same slide with prettier pictures at the top. There's one slide that I don't have on here, which is, I think, quite interesting. Is one thing, as I mentioned earlier, according to research, they think there will be 1 million electric boats on the market by 2030. I think probably it might be more than that. And then the other significant factor is, if you look at the graph of and the sort of industry sort of workhorse is a 150 horsepower outboard engine. Currently, the cost of that, if you were to do an electric version of that currently, you'd be paying like 3 to 4 times as much money as the market stands now. The market predictions with the efficiencies in the batteries I'm telling you about, federal grants and incentives, and the fact so that they think that the prices will cross. So the ICE engine and the electric engine for a 150 horsepower outboard engine will cross and be the same in the middle of 23 or 24. So in the year of 23, basically. So I'm here because I want to start talking to marinas around the lake, come to arrangement. How my business, on a business model, how we work is we understand that it's quite a significant capital expenditure of CapEx for any marina to put one of these pieces of equipment in. The machines themselves are expensive, and as I'm learning, as I go to different marinas around the country, infrastructure is somewhat of a challenge in terms of how much power you have on site at marinas. Obviously, there are some bigger marinas that are used to like bigger super yachts pulling up or something like that. They can plug in and they may have a lot of power there. But we kind of want to blanket everywhere. So what we offer as a company is we come to the marinas and we say, look, these electric boats are coming. We don't expect you to make a capital expenditure. We are prepared to do so. And what we do is we sign a concessionary contract, but it's over a long period of time. Like 15, 20 years, because it's going to take us that long to get our capital expenditure back, because we may have to pay for a new transformer to be dropped into the marina, trenching 480 volt power lines. So you can end up with a significant capital expenditure for one marina. It could be in the region of $150,000 to get one of these chargers in place. And there are a very small number of electric boats on the market right now. We believe that's going to grow exponentially. And so the crossing point of when those begin to make money, 5 years maybe, and then into the future. And then we also want to make it future-proof, because right now the technology is changing so quickly. Our workhorse charger that we're putting in is 75 kilowatt hours. That will already be redundant in 2 years, because the batteries will be able to take much faster charging. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? 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 Any ques
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. One more question. Can you come in from the smaller unit? People could have on their own dock.
Well, Lender, are you currently the only electric boat user on the lake?
No, there's a few out there.
There are? Oh, yeah, I've seen a couple of the old Electro or whatever.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Parker, would you like to bring us up to date on the septic committee?
From electric boats to septic systems,
Yeah.
just a natural partnership here. Yes, Mr. Chairman, our septic committee and our ad hoc septic committee have got our meetings all scheduled out through the end of the year. Dave and I recently had a meeting with Sam Hall, who's the town's Fort Ann supervisor, also the chairman of the Washington County Board, and John Graham, the code enforcement officer. And with the help of Walt Lender, we're working on the same project at Ticonderoga and Essex County to bring in those entities into our ad hoc experience and for their input and our output, et cetera, et cetera. So that pretty much finishes covering the lake on that type of situation. I got more paper than I need today. I was going to give you some bullet points on what we've done as they've been prepared by our newest employee, Jason Kinkonis, but his report isn't terribly long, and it's got a little more meat than the bullet points that I was working on, so with your permission, I'd like to quickly read this. The LGPC and the LGA are collaborating on a GIS data package that maps the locations of parcels in the park with private wastewater systems. This map project builds on the spatial analysis presented last meeting, which estimated the number of systems a set distance from aquatic resources. Part of the intention of making a workable map is to allow stakeholders and policymakers to visualize the scope of the potential regulations. Also, locations of interest within the park can be highlighted and a better understanding the challenges unique to each municipality can be gained. The data package is being assembled using publicly available spatial data and will be accompanied by a document listing the methods used in construction. The intention is to deliver a map that is objective and reproducible. Additionally, final products will be shared with GIS analysts at our partner, the Chazen Companies, as an expert, unbiased review of the methods and data used. At this stage, the project, we are assembling the raw spatial data layers and have begun writing the methods document. We've also completed a survey of regional septic inspection programs in New York and adjacent states and provinces. At this stage of the project, an exhaustive web survey of 12 programs has been completed in areas of the Finger Lakes, the New York City watershed, Westchester County, province of Ontario, and the Lake George region. From web searches, pertinent information was learned about these programs, including the scope and frequency of inspections, inspection fee, type of inspector training, and inspection standards. Additional contact information for each program's manager was collected, with plans to follow up over phone for additional detail and their own perspective on the programs. And we've included some general items of interest that have been noted, such as the primary reasons for creating the programs are tourism, public health, property values, speedies compliance, and the needed consistency between municipalities' own individual septic control laws. And differences in regional approach. The example, Finger Lakes region program partners with NPOs and SWCDs as inspectors. Westchester County towns have a law requiring haulers to certify the system. The Lake George region is training inspectors. Ontario uses a consulting firm. And we're also measuring the size of the various inspection fees. There's no standard kind of level yet. The most common frequency of inspections is 5 years. Finger Lakes decrease frequency with proximity to lakes and streams. New York State Department of Health's Appendix 75-A is our standard in programs, or the county DOH if it supersedes that. So that says it a lot better than I could have. And David, you have any items that you'd like to expand on?
I would just say, I think the committee that we have is great. We have 12 ad hoc advisors from around the community, engineers, local health folks, DEC, Department of Health, local politicians, supervisors. So, we're always looking for people to engage with us and give us the best ideas. I'm always available, Joe's always available. And if you have thoughts on where we are, we want this to be as transparent as possible. Justin maintains our website. We have kind of a listing where we are so far with the literature review. Jason's put together the spreadsheet talking about the different lakes that have administered these types of programs. So if you have ideas, information, feel free to share that with the commission. And then we'll, of course, be public with that. Our next meeting is, I'm not sure, is it the 5th? But that's going to be, it's on our website, take a look at the subject page. And of course, that's by Zoom, because there's some people from out of the area. So kind of think we're progressing pretty well so far. We're looking at probably a 3 to 4 month time frame to get all the information that we think we need to have a larger discussion and make sure that municipalities are involved, the counties are involved, and all the other partners as well. So I think we're on a pretty good path. So thank you.
Good. Any members of the committee or the commission as a whole have comments or questions? That's us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Project review actions, Joe.
Resolution 2021-37, accepts project review action report. Whereas the commission had received and reviewed the project review action report prepared by the staff and dated July 20th, 2021. And whereas the project review committee recommends acceptance of the project review action report, now therefore be resolved that the commission directs the project review action report be incorporated in the minutes of the full commission meeting. So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to accept the project review actions report. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. First project on the agenda today is a tour modification of a marina permit submitted by Carol McIntosh of Town of Bolton. Joe?
Thank you. Yep. So this is an existing tour boat operation that has 2 boats already. They're looking to add a 3rd tour boat and operate out of the Flamingo, where they currently operate. Flamingo is a Class A marina authorized for 5 tour boats already, so this would represent the 5th tour boat of their allotted authorization. And I believe Mrs. McIntosh, Mr. McIntosh is here to discuss the application in more detail. Yes. Please approach the mic and introduce yourself and talk about the project a little bit more.
Hi, I'm Carol McIntosh. Hi, I'm Carol McIntosh with ADK Boat Tours. We have been lucky enough to grow. Thank you. And we have got an additional boat we'd like to add. We feel that having this business has been really wonderful, and a lot of people that would come up and rent a boat are now coming to us, and we have captains that are PV'd on safe boats, taking them out for tours, and we would like to continue and add an additional boat to do that.
Any commissioners have any questions for the applicant? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, do you have anything you want to say about this?
We visited the site, and it doesn't appear as there's any complications associated with just adding another tour boat, which, as the applicant said, it reduces the number of people renting boats, so it's a good switch.
So
So this replaces one of their charters, if I understand it right. Is that right, Joe?
Yeah, that's correct.
We'll go ahead and read a resolution.
Resolution 2021-38, approve the tour boat application number TB 214018 tour boat. Applicant is McIntosh DBA ADK Boats Tours, whereas the applicant has applied for a permit to add a third tour boat to an existing tour boat operation. The Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record, and the Commission has made a determination that the project is an unlisted action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act of 6 NY CRR 617.5, and as lead agency for the purposes of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, has made a determination that the project will have no significant impact on the environment, and whereas the action is considered to be a major project pursuant to 6 NY CRR 645-5.3, and public notice has been published and distributed as required, the applicant has demonstrated that the activity will comply with the tour boat requirements of 646-1.4D and 2. And whereas the Commission finds that the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, and will not have an undue visual, cultural, or audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby resolves to approve the above application as proposed. So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the application? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. Next project is a dock modification for a boat lift submitted by Christopher Kruger, Town of Queensbury.
Thank you. So this is a dock modification to put in a boat lift on an existing dock. The lift is in a compliant location. However, we received a comment from a neighbor indicating concerns that there could be visual impact from the boat lift, lifted above the water surface. So rather than make a decision at the staff level, we've brought the application to all of you to evaluate the potential visual impact and decide whether or not to issue the permit. Devin Dickinson is here to represent the applicant, and he's also provided some visual aids which are in your meeting materials, and you've had a chance to look at in advance of this.
Thank you, Joe. Devin Dickinson, I'm here on behalf of the Krugers and Adirondacks, who is going to be installing the lift if it gets approved. In the public comment period, as Joe said, we got some concerns from one of the neighbors. I used a photo that the neighbor supplied and tried to superimpose a boat to see what it would look like on the lift. Joe also asked for a side-by-side comparison. So I tried to take, as many detailed measurements as I could and specifications on the lift and the boat, so we kind of get some idea of how much higher it will be on the lift. So.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant? No. Thank you, sir. Joe, I have a question for the park. You were at the site visit. We had a complaint, so to speak, from the next door neighbor about a view shed. Do you think that this will interfere with the view shed or not?
We didn't. We had a couple of us went there and actually stood on the patio of the neighbor, and Devin supplied us, of course, with the impact of side-by-side. It only raises it up by 3 feet or so, something in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 feet, and you can certainly see it has an impact only on the water and maybe up to a neighbor's dock, but the mountains and the islands you can all see perfectly well. I think, Ken, you were there with us.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to have a boat off that way a little bit, so if you stood there and use your imagination as to where the new boat top would be, it was appropriate.
Yeah.
And I think it's, according to the plan that we received just yesterday, whenever, it's looks like 2.5 feet difference using real vertical.
Yeah.
2.6. It's there, but I don't think it's obstructive.
Okay. Any further comments? Joe?
Resolution 2021-39, application number DWM214039, dock modification application. Applicant is Christopher Kruger, whereas the applicant has applied for a permit to add a boat lift to an existing dock, and the Lake George Park Commission has reviewed the application, supporting documents, comments received, and other information which appears in the record, and the Commission has made a determination that the project is a Type 2 action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act 6 NYS 617.5. No further review is required for the purposes of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and whereas the action is considered to be a minor project pursuant to 6 NYS 645-5.3. Public notice has been published and distributed in accordance with the Commission regulation, and whereas the proposed dock complies with the regulatory design requirements for docks at 6446-1.1, the Commission finds the project will have no adverse impact on the health, safety, or welfare of the public, the environment, or the resources of the park, will not alter the essential character of the area in which it is proposed, will not lead to congestion in the park, and will not have an undue visual, cultural, audible impact on the neighborhood or the park. Now therefore be resolved, the Lake George Park Commission hereby resolves to approve the above application as proposed. So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the application as submitted. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Law Enforcement Committee, Ken Parker.
Thank you. Law Enforcement Committee met for the first time in person in a long time. Everybody with clean shirts on and no pajamas were present. Lieutenant Johns presented us with a number of items, including some operating issues with a couple of the boats, which we're working on, and the improvement in communications with the new radios that have been installed on the boats. We spent some time investigating loud boats, accidents and first aid calls, night calls. We discussed the moorings at Sandy Bay and our current DWI, along with some other and some enforcement actions that we did in executive session. I'll read in Resolution 2021-40, whereas the Law Enforcement Committee met on July 27, 2021 to review matters pertaining to the Lake George Park Commission's Marine Patrol and the Commission's law enforcement program, and whereas active law enforcement cases and their status were reviewed in executive session, and whereas the Law Enforcement Committee has reported on the results of that committee meeting at this full Commission meeting, and whereas the Law Enforcement Committee recommends acceptance of this month's law enforcement report, now therefore be it resolved that the Commission accepts the report of the Law Enforcement Committee, and I would make that a motion.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the report of the Law Enforcement Committee. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. That brings us to public comments. Do we have any public comments today?
Yes, please.
Yeah?
My name is Randy McIntosh with ADK Boat Tours, and just a brief mention, and we've reached out to Dave Wick, who's done a great job on what I'm going to discuss, but recently the Get My Boat rental site has caused an impact to all of the PV operations on the lake, literally taking money out of our pockets and doing these illegal tours. They are boats that are not PV inspected, don't pay New York sales tax, and of course, in most cases, the person who's referred to as a captain, we don't know that as a fact. And of course, many of the safety and other issues. And the people that rent these boats at a slight discount, and in some cases don't, they don't know the difference. And just today, there's, after bringing it to the attention, the quantity dropped from 9 on the Get My Boat Tour site to 2 offenders. The 2 primary offenders still on the site today is a 26-foot Cobalt, Captain John. He has multiple reviews. His registration number is NY7277MM. And on the side of his license, of course, there is no PV. The second one is also a beautiful boat offering wake surfing, water skiing, and tubing, identically to what we do. We've seen him take customers right out of our mouths in Bolton. He goes by the name Justin. I can't identify his boat ID number because of his pictures are limited, but I wrote out to Justin. And enforcement of this should be easy, but I wrote to Justin and I said, hey, and this was 2 weeks ago, can you pick me up at a town dock in Bolton or any motel? Yeah, right at any dock, anytime. Then on July 18th, I said, hey, plans changed. Can you do today, July 27th? Answer, sure, that's perfect. Let me know. So Justin from the town of Bolton with his beautiful boat has not been impeded from that. And, it's tough to get everyone who wants to get that little portion of things. But we just ask for your attention. Law enforcement's been doing a great job. I see them much more visible out there. But it just is sad that they see the opportunities and they aren't paying the fees. They aren't doing it the right way. They aren't paying the insurance. And it's tough to make a profit when you do it all the right way. We just like a level playing field. And we call these poachers, as we call them. We see them around. We see them pick up people that are in no way associated with them, get on the boat, and 2 to 3 hours they're coming back, and you know what's going on. But it's a tough issue. We just like and appreciate the time you've allowed me to speak on the subject matter. And it's late in the year. 2/3 of the year is gone. They're still those 2 are still aggressively trying to make money. And I'm hoping they maybe even reaching out to the Get My Boat website. Somebody from Lake George could say, hey, you can't even list that lake as an option for renting out your own boats on. But I know that may be difficult. The Get My Boat website is fantastic for Florida and other areas, don't get me wrong. But here on Lake George, it's just ripe for creating a problem and a safety issue. And last thing we want is some captain illegally creating a safety hazard or an accident and it becoming harder on the rest of us that are legitimate operations. And on a side note, thank you for letting us expand our business. And it's been a pleasure doing it the right way since we've moved here 5 years ago from Niagara Falls. Working with the commission is fantastic when you go about it the right way. So thank you.
Randy?
Thank you.
Yes.
Question, did you actually encounter Justin when you had...
I know his last name and I know enough, and you can actually call him, and if you wanted me to actually go to the point, all you got to do is just book it with a credit card, walk down there at wherever you want to meet him and say, hey, I go on the boat and there's a Lake George Park Commission vessel waiting to pull him right over and saying, hey, why do you have that family or that person on board the boat? And if if it's cash, I could make a photocopy of the $100 bills that I just gave him, and you can say, hey, Justin, what's in your pocket? pocket. But no, it's a local young aggressive male who's well-known in the town of Bolton, and Bolton's small, and we don't want to be turning a reputation for being a snitch, but on the other hand, I just want a fair playing field.
Thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Chairman, I can provide just a quick update on where we are with that. So we asked Jason, our new analyst, to kind of dig into, there's 3 primary ways we've been finding these boats that are Get My Boat and Lake George Voters page. It's a little bit of whack-a-mole, but I think, as this gentleman indicated, Joe Johns, the lieutenant, has reached out with a notice of violation to everybody that we've seen so far. Most have complied, but we do see following up on every other boat we can find. Sir, if you can see other ones that come across your radar, if you see it, forward them to me, and we'll follow it up on immediately. This commission takes, PVs very seriously, licensed captains, as you indicated. So, yeah, thanks for your diligence on this, and we'll definitely follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Webb.
I finally learned how to take a screenshot of my iPad, and I email it or message it to Joe, and I get a nice little thank you, and he goes out and gets them.
Thank you. Are there any further public comments?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
I hear a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Done.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to go to Garrison.
Garrison?